The Recluse is everything I could possibly want from a big hat magic user. She's described as one of the witches of the deep forest and a caster of ancient sorceries who dwells in obscurity far into the heart of the woods. She came to the lands between to answer a burning question. Why is her hat so big? I actually repurposed this hat from the one I used in my Rani cosplay, and instead of focusing on keeping one eye closed, like in that video, I'm going to do my best to keep this balanced on my head. Also, I don't have the green screen up today, so you'll get to enjoy my very cool walls again. Thank you, Displate, for that and for sponsoring this video. Unlike your usual paper prints that fade or curl over time, Displates are metal posters which stay vibrant and colourful wherever you hang them. There are over 2 million designs, including officially licensed art from franchises like Elden Ring, The Witcher, Warhammer, One Piece, and many more. And no matter what you're passionate about, there will be something that will look great on your wall. Displate is also a platform for artists. If you're a creator, you can join others around the world by sharing your designs to be printed on a metal canvas too. The best part about Displate is that the mounting system is super simple. No tools, no drills, and no holes in your wall. Even I can do it, which says a lot. Each Displate comes with everything you need. Stick the adhesive leaf on your wall, place the magnet on top, and that's it. And if you ever feel like switching things up or your recent fixation fades, then you can easily swap them out in seconds. Displate's latest addition is their Textra product line, featuring tactile textures, 3D contours, selective matte and gloss finishes that really make the art stand out, and more designs from the Displate library will be getting Textra versions over the months. Shipping is quick as well, with your order arriving in 4 to 5 business days. By the time you've finished watching some of my video essays, your order will be here. So if you're interested, please consider using my link in the description, displate.com/@MissChalice, or just use my code Chalice at the checkout. Get the following discounts on your order: 25% off 1 Displate, 32% off 2 or 3 Displates, 37% off 3 or more Displates. Thank you again to Displate for sponsoring this video, and thank you for continuing to support the channel. Though my fellows call me by the name of Recluse, mine origin is as one of many, a witch of the deep woods. For mine seclusion amongst the trees, cause did I have to journey forth to Limveld, where I had mine to search for a certain something, coiled in shadow. What that question is, or what she is seeking, she's not open about. She's so reserved that the Iron Menial reacts to her quite differently than he does to the other Nightfarers.
It is no easy topic to broach, but you seem to show little enthusiasm for slaying the Night Lord. You are difficult to read, to say the least. One might think you were planning an indiscretion.
He even politely implies that she seems untrustworthy. Her reluctance to challenge the Night Lord raises concern. Does she truly share in the Nightfarer's cause? To be fair, his suspicions are not unfounded, as Recluse's motivations are a little complicated. I search for, yes, my beloved infant. If I am to find it, I must recognize the signs that shall point the way. The being that I, as a witch, birthed. It was never a true name bequeathed, though with a certain mirth we spoke of it as the Gnawling. Recluse is not just a cryptic forest witch, she is also a mother searching for her lost child. She refers to it affectionately and somewhat unsettlingly as the Gnawling. The name likely stems from the word gnaw, to bite or chew repeatedly, something we associate with either animals or infants, and this nickname will explain itself shortly. Despite having given birth to this child, something occurred that tore them apart. Its whereabouts are now unknown, and so Recluse came to Limveld to follow its trail. Her journal reads like a collection of notes and observations, detailing her objective to obtain a shard of night. Interestingly, when you play through the Remembrance, it appears that the Menial believes he is overseeing this. He assigns her the task of retrieving a night shard to prove her loyalty. Yet, as we see in her journal, this is precisely what Recluse wanted all along. The shard is a crystallized remnant of night, drawn from night-tainted foes, and may serve as the key to locating her child. The dynamic between the Recluse and the Menial is really interesting. Both are perceptive, guarded, and not entirely upfront with each other, but I don't believe either of them is acting in bad faith. The Menial remains cautious, maybe overly so, while the Recluse, true to her name, walks her path in solitude. Nonetheless, despite not making the best of first impressions, when you present a night shard to the Menial, he appears relieved and satisfied that he can place his trust in you.
Thank you for cooperating. There is no question that you are sincerely allied with us in our common cause. My apologies for doubting you.
This trust seems mutual, as you are then prompted to ask him to aid you in your search for the infant.
Oh, I had no idea this would help guide our search. I'll look after it for you. Had you foreseen this all along? You have humbled me.
The menial, ever perceptive, realizes Recluse had been one step ahead all along. Still, he agrees without hesitation, taking the shard to help locate her child. While I await the outcome of the menial's investigation, my thoughts turn to an old companion now past. For my search in some ways is an atonement for what happened to her. The Witch of the Wheel, an old friend who is learned in the same ways as I. She was, in a sense, the infant's nurse. The gnawling would eat anything and everything in quantities most vast. As such, I left its feeding to mine old companion. The Witch of the Wheel was a woman of deceit. Her wiles were sword and shield to her. Here we are introduced to another figure, the Witch of the Wheel, a late friend of the Recluse and someone who helped care for her child. Yet this journal entry begins to feel a little bit foreboding. This was no ordinary infant. The gnawling possessed a boundless hunger, devouring anything and everything in sight, so much so that the Recluse turned to her friend for help. And forgive me, but choosing to entrust someone you describe as clever but deceitful with the well-being of your child is a questionable parental decision. In the next chapter, we return to the menial, who has made progress in his investigation.
I have come to an understanding regarding the Shards of Night. It was written of in an old document from a faraway land. In a dispute between two realms, there was a beast at the center of the affair, which devoured soldier after soldier. No one saw the beast itself, but it left a mountain of corpses in its wake. An old man-at-arms is quoted as saying, "It feasted on our shadows, even those of the dead."
He found in his research an account of a creature that devours shadows. The night shard, once pristine, now bears similar marks, evidence of gnawing teeth. Though translucent, there is a shadow-like patterning, seemingly the traces of something eating away at it. The reach of night is limitless, its potential immeasurable, its touch indiscriminate, affecting any and all things. Whether one fears the night or welcomes it depends upon the manner of contact. Recluse then asks for the shard to be returned, and she imbues it with her power, and it begins to pulse faintly. The breath of the night rises and falls within this shard, ready to answer that which seeks to touch it. Now bound to the shard through her magic, it becomes a link to her child's whereabouts, quite literally. This took me off guard. After a moment, if you look down, dark puddles appear on the ground, and if you follow them, they'll lead you all the way to the waiting room. Rounding the corner and approaching the bed, you find a stained bedsheet glowing with an eerie blue, and as the Recluse reaches out to touch the bed, you hear an infant's cry. I didn't know we were playing Bloodborne. I know I'm being a little bit obnoxious, but this quest does have that familiar theme of motherhood that Souls games like to touch on here and there, especially Bloodborne. And there are moments in this quest that remind me, for example, of the cries heard after Murgo's wet nurse, the blood-stained robes of the Queen of Yharnam, and of course the umbilical cords. Now, there isn't an umbilical cord on this bed, but something close. Something called a vestige of night. If you've watched my lore videos before, you'll know I've spent some time yapping about the word vestige, particularly in the context of the Crucible, where it refers to body parts rendered obsolete through the course of evolution, like their horns. But in this case, vestige feels closer to its other definition, a trace or remnant of something that has disappeared, and the item itself reflects that. It's described as a terribly tattered rag, a clear sign of the Night Lord's presence. Upon discovering this item, it's clear that it affects the Recluse. The screen fades to black, and it appears to be the menial's voice that snaps her out of this trance.
Brave champion, there you are. You must tell me, what was the engraving?
However, there is something he lets slip here which is a little strange. What engraving? Burned and worn down over a span of time untold, the hint of an impression once made by the engraving of an old sealing stone can be seen, but it is no longer legible. The menial asked about an engraving, but how did he know there was one before setting eyes upon it? Once again, another curious exchange with the iron menial, and the item description itself reads with a note of suspicion, and in her journal the recluse makes a pointed observation. She has seen him converse, passing little with the other warriors of late. His presence seemeth to recede at the round table. Something isn't quite right, and to think he was the one who questioned her trustworthiness in the beginning. But don't worry, all will be explained later. Let's first return to that cloth, the vestige of night, and what it means for Recluse's quest to find her child. She goes on to write, "I am certain, after mine infant disappeared itself that day, it must have had an audience with the Night Lord. It ravened as if its appetite knew no bound. It would devour shadows of any stripe. The Night Lord's own shade surely seemed irresistible to it. What must have become of my creature after it did feast?" Now, while each boss is referred to as a Night Lord, there is one referred to as the Night Lord, the final boss of the game. Recluse believes that her child, driven by its insatiable hunger for shadows, was drawn to that power. That's where she will find it. But before this final confrontation, she has unfinished business. Recluse writes in her journal that she sensed a familiar magic on that scrap of fabric, the presence of her old friend, the Witch of the Wheel. That should be impossible. She was supposed to be dead. In this entry, Recluse begins to open up and reveal the truth of what happened that fateful day. During a great clash of armies, the infant overran the enemy, devouring their shadows. It was then that it lost itself and bared its fangs at us. With time, I have come to understand. It was yet young and afraid, and I did not think to take it in my arms, to offer comfort of any kind. The price I paid was the loss of an old friend. I still remember, clear as day, her remains, shorn of any shadow. This account echoes something that the Iron Menial discovered in one of his old documents, a record of a battle where a shadow-eating beast tore through both sides indiscriminately. That beast, of course, is probably the infant, and one of its victims was the very woman Recluse had entrusted with its care. It's clear Recluse carries deep regret for this. She believed that she failed to understand her child, that she neglected to offer it the kind of love and comfort it needed in that moment of fear. And because of that failure, she lost her closest companion. Reliving this remembrance tasks you with finding the Witch of the Wheel, as the Recluse suspects her friend may still linger, hidden within the Round Table hold. At first glance, nothing appears to be different. The Nightfarers are going about their different routines, the small jar continues selling its oddities, and the Iron Menial tends to the grounds. But something is off. One of these familiar faces is not where they should be. If you head to the sparring grounds, you'll find the menial there, polishing or sharpening a sword. He doesn't act suspiciously. Nothing he says is out of place, but he is out of place. There is something unique about this area. It's the only place in the hold where combat is allowed. You draw your weapon automatically upon entry. And yes, you can attack anything within this area, including the menial.
What is the matter, kind champion?
Now don't feel guilty for too long, because this isn't actually the menial.
What gave me away? It hath been long indeed, fellow spellcaster. How pleasant it is to see thy feathers ruffled for a change. Understandable, though, as thou sawest me battle-slain and buried.
This is the Witch of the Wheel, and the first thing you'll notice is that she looks nearly identical to the Recluse. I've seen people say that she is Recluse's sister or twin, but this is most likely a misconception. Yes, the menial later does use the phrase sister-in-arms, but that's not to be taken literally. It refers to their camaraderie, not familial ties. The Witch of the Wheel is an old friend, a fellow practitioner of magic, not necessarily a sibling.
Rememberest thou not? The monster to which thou gavest rise, the devourer of shadow, the weapon unleashed by thee upon the world entire. I was subsumed by the infant, but clung to life in this form.
If you listen closely to what she says during their reunion, she explains that she assumed this form after the infant devoured her shadow and she perished. That wording, this form, strongly suggests that what we are seeing now isn't her original appearance, and considering she was able to impersonate the menial, then there's no reason that she couldn't replicate the form of her old friend as well. Remember, she is a woman of deceit. Personally, I don't believe that this is what the Witch of the Wheel truly looks like or looked like, kind of in the way that Rani doesn't actually look the way she does. And also, like Rani, you can't attack the Witch of the Wheel. I did try for science, by the way. She has this force field around her, exactly the same as Rani. So anyway, the witch clearly feels betrayed and has chosen a pointed, symbolic appearance to show her grievances. And when she speaks to the recluse, this bitterness comes through.
As events conspired, neither of us should have survived. Yet thou still drawest breath. While I? Why? In what measure did I not stand equal to thee? Yet, unlike thee, ever heedless, free of spirit, I am the one who will succeed.
Imagine your friend thrust upon you the care of their child, who is a beast-like creature of darkness and prone to ravenous hunger, and due to its fear and neglect, it turns on you and you die as a result. It's hard to blame her reaction, really. Also, the menial imposter appears not to cast a shadow. I have no idea if this is intentional, but it may be a reference to Recluse's memory that the victims of her child left no shadow. However, once this illusion breaks, a shadow does appear, so who knows? We also learn that somehow the Night Lord brought her back. Whether this resurrection was intentional or incidental is not super clear, but she urges the recluse to abandon her quest to defeat the Night Lord, mocking the idea as futile and also taunting her.
Indeed. How should I put this? Canst thou thine own child slay?
She implies that to slay the Night Lord, Recluse may be forced to slay her child in the process. Now, it's worth noting that the language surrounding the connection between the infant and the Night Lord is kind of ambiguous, and at times it almost seems to suggest that the Night Lord is the infant grown into something terrible. However, I'm not sure if that's the case. Instead, it seems more likely that the infant somehow attached itself to the Night Lord, perhaps even became a vessel for its power, or vice versa. But like I said, I personally believe they are two separate beings. Getting back on track, I hear you asking a very pressing question. What happened to the Iron Menial? Is he okay? Well, after you finish talking to the Witch of the Wheel, she informs you to check a new area, the crypt. And tucked away behind the stone tombs, you'll find the body of the deactivated marionette.
Where am I? Brave Lady Witch? Why on earth? How could you have done such a thing?
He's disorientated and outraged. From his perspective, you attacked him. Of course, he has no idea that this was actually the Witch of the Wheel, having assumed your form to deceive him. Now, we don't know how long the menial has been down here, but I think it aligns with when the recluse started noticing that he had been acting differently and knowing about the engraving on the vestige of night. Most likely that is when the Witch of the Wheel had taken over. Once you explain what happened, the menial understands and expresses his sympathy for the recluse's situation.
As you tell it, the Night Lord grew from a shadow hatchling. If that is true, then there may indeed be some degree of culpability. But can we unquestioningly assume that a single enchanted organism could mature so fantastically?
So remember I said the way that they talk about the Night Lord and the infant gets a bit blurred? Let's talk about that for a second. The Night Lord grew from a shadow hatchling. Okay, so that could mean one of two things. Either the Night Lord was once this hatchling, the infant, or the Night Lord somehow absorbed and merged with the infant and grew from it. And I'm not going to lie to you, I don't know. I like to think I have a pretty decent grasp on Elden Ringisms, but I'm holding my hands up here and saying, I have no idea. Even the menial himself questions it. Can we really conclude that an infant was able to grow so quickly? Which is a fair point, implying that even he doubts the possibility that Recluse's child could have become the Night Lord in such a short space of time. And with this almost comedic timing, he changes the topic and starts talking about a stone that he found on the floor of the mausoleum.
Oh, what's this? brave champion. Perhaps you should take it.
But not any stone, a bone-like stone with a disturbingly distinct lifelessness.
While unconscious, I had a dream. I was handed this by the Night Lord. Well, I didn't see our foe per se, but I know it to be true.
The menial claims that the Night Lord gave this to him in a dream. The bone of an outer god with the power to expunge divine essence, but that can also be destroyed by the same essence. The choice was left to the witch, as per the wishes of the one who bestowed it. The stone somehow innately contains the power to destroy its being of origin. The recluse goes on to note in her journal that the infant's voice can be heard when softly touching the stone. What an awful position to be in, a mother given the means to destroy the child she has been desperately trying to find. So when you finally unlock the final boss, the recluse is brought face to face with the night aspect, also known as the Shape of the Night, aka the Night Lord. If you look closely at his model, you might notice something familiar. His body is wrapped in these coiling scraps of fabric covered in golden sigils. This is very likely what was mentioned in the Vestige of Night, those tattered rags with markings from an old sealing stone. That's probably what we're seeing here, sealing sigils binding this being for a very good reason. When you defeat the Shape of the Night, Phase 2 begins after a massive shadow spill out from inside him, implying that the seal has finally broken, and from it emerges his true form, Heelster the Night Lord. This fight is fantastic, by the way. They really delivered on the visual spectacle of a final boss. Heelster's shadow powers are immense. Now, how much of that power is contributed by the recluse's infant is unclear, but it makes sense why the child was drawn to this figure. After the fight ends, if you turn around, you will now find yourself outside the Round Table Hold. Although as you walk inside, most of the areas are now blocked off. Now, the default ending of Nightreign for all the Nightfarers is to walk straight forward through the Round Table Hold and interact with the body at the end of the hall. Don't do that if you want to complete Recluse's quest. If you do, you'll trigger the default ending, not Recluse's ending, and you'll have to complete the expedition and refight the final boss all over again. I know this from experience. Instead, head towards the waiting room, which is still accessible, and as you approach, you'll begin to hear the soft sound of a child crying, and this time on the bed, you'll see the swaddled, shadowy form of the infant. You actually get to see what Recluse's child looks like, and I didn't expect for them to have such a cute little blobby character model. I can imagine that previously, the more the infant consumed, the larger and more fearsome the shadow grew. But now released from the Night Lord, it assumed its original infant size, and in a quiet and tender conclusion, the recluse reaches for her child and cradles it against her, finally giving it the love and acceptance it had been missing from its mother. This is also another reason I don't believe that Heelster is Recluse's child, because if you continue down the corridor after the boss fight, you'll still find this withered corpse, a being completely separate from the infant. This corpse appears for all the Nightfarers in the default Nightreign ending. Whether you need to interact with it depends on whether you've completed their quests, but it will still exist for everyone. And for the most part, I believe this body belonged to Heelster, the Night Lord himself. In the default ending, you offer a rune to this body, just like how you offered your rune of choice to Marika's fractured body at the end of Elden Ring. The rune determines the future of this world, whether you want to change the order, keep the cycle going, or destroy the world entirely. So in Nightreign, it appears that you offer the Night Lord's rune. This puts Heelster to rest, and the strange night phenomenon ends. The events of Nightreign are effectively undone, restoring the world to its original timeline, because remember, Nightreign is a branching, alternative universe from the base Elden Ring game. Anyway, after the screen fades to black and the credits roll, you'll find yourself back in the Round Table Hold. To officially complete Recluse's quest, you need to return to the waiting room, but this time, the infant is no longer there. Instead, you find the Witch of the Wheel.
My fellow spellcaster, I thank thee for bestowing thy love upon our night.
As her body fades away into the shadows, she leaves behind her red and purple robes, the recluse's respective remembrance skin. This outcome was actually something the menial had warned about. Her resurrection was only ever tethered to Heelster's continued existence, and now that he's gone, so too must she go. It's a really beautiful final moment as the witch refers to the infant as theirs, sharing that title not out of obligation, but out of love. I thank thee for bestowing thy love upon our knight. Thus did my old companion speak to me in parting. The words resounded within, as I took the infant in mine arms. As I did what I once could not all those years ago, the crying hath now ceased. The gentle knight within its breast knoweth now a peaceful slumber. So we have a couple of things to wrap up with, or try to wrap up with. First of all, it's a really great closure. Recluse finally gives her child the love it was denied in a peaceful conclusion. But a part of me wonders if there is something more than meets the eye here. Of course, the child needed affection, but would that alone be enough to silence its ravenous hunger for shadows? Does the recluse now have a way to sustain it? She is, after all, a powerful witch versed in blood magic and capable of birthing a being of shadow. Surely she could find some arcane means to nourish it, to keep it alive without feeding on others. Or maybe the infant only became a monster because it was trying to fill the void where love should have been, etc., etc. We're all very familiar with this trope. We have to remember the bone-like stone, though. The relic with the ability to erase divine essence and be destroyed by it as well. A weapon and a sacrifice, a choice that everyone seems to be waiting for the recluse to make. What if that peaceful slumber mentioned in the journal is the permanent kind? What if, once separated from the Night Lord, the recluse finally chose to destroy her child, not out of cruelty, but out of mercy, to end the cycle before it began again? I know it's quite morbid, and I want to believe that another's love can be enough, but in witchcraft, death is not necessarily a tragedy. It's part of the turning of the wheel. Birth, growth, death, decay, and rebirth. That is the rhythm of their world. It's likely no coincidence that her old companion was named the Witch of the Wheel, a reference perhaps to the Wheel of the Year, the pagan calendar that marks the endless cycle of transformation and return. And maybe that's what happened here. By embracing death, symbolized by the very child she once feared, the recluse finally stepped into the part of the cycle she'd always turned away from. But getting back in touch with it, facing it, reuniting with her roots, she found peace for herself and for the child she birthed from shadows.